Hello. So yes, as promised, for the entire month of December, I'm going to be covering the Doctor Who Christmas specials that I have yet to review. Also early on this year when I was doing my review of series 2 to 10 of Doctor Who, I omitted doing the Christmas specials because I wanted to save them for December. And so that's what we're doing. I've done some de- de- uh, what was it? Background set decoration for some of the Christmas stuff that I have. And yeah, because I'm actually filming this not in November. I'm filming this in um, September. Yes, September 14th to be exact is when I'm recording this because I have already watched through the David Tennant Christmas specials. So, before this review starts off, I am going to be omitting one of David Tennant's Christmas specials, and that is The Christmas Invasion, his first story. Why? Because that was last year's Christmas special, where I'd done a full review of that story. Because that was actually my introduction to Doctor Who, was that story. So I'll be basically reviewing The Runaway Bride, Voyage of the Damned, and The Next Doctor, and The End of Time parts 1 and 2. So you're getting 5 stories. So, I actually haven't rewatched them since I first watched them early on this year, so let's dive right in with The Runaway Bride. This episode still holds up. It really does. It's the first episode to introduce Donna Noble, which at the time we thought was a one-off character. Before her return in series 4 and the 60th anniversary, which again, as I'm recording this, hasn't come out for me yet. So I don't know what my thoughts and opinions of the 60th anniversary are yet. I'm pretty sure there is a review for it though by the time this comes out. Anywhoosies, yeah, so this episode is really, really good because, it's the Doctor fresh off of losing Rose. And, he's trying to not be grown too much attached to Donna, but at the same time, he's trying to process all of that. He's still trying to process the loss of Rose, his love. And, like I said, it still holds up as a really, really great episode. Catherine Tate, phenomenal in this episode. Really, really, really well done. Um, and she calls the Doctor out on his shit. The Doctor was so close to killing properly the Rackanos. Well, I mean, he did technically. He drowned the children, but she's the one who told him that, hey, you can stop now, because that's one of the main running themes of the Doctor is if he's left alone too long, if he does not have a companion there to hold him accountable, he will go dark and he will be vicious and he will kill. We've seen this mainly in the new revival of the show of just how dark and evil he can be because of the Time War. And it's honestly still a very good episode, and it's the first hint at the Master with Harold Saxon. And of course, this episode is kind of referenced again in Series 4 for the brilliant episode of Turn Left. So, yeah, really, really, really good episode. Thoroughly enjoyed it. So, now moving on to The Voyage of the Damned, the episode with Kylie Minogue. My first actual crush as a kid. Yes, when I was 3 or 4, my first crush was Kylie Minogue. I'm not afraid to admit that. You know, she's an attractive woman. Still is an attractive woman. Anyway, this episode, Voyage of the Damned, was set up at the end of series 3, obviously, but also at the end of the Time Crash special. Now, I remember when I was getting onto this episode to rewatch it for when I was doing my watch throughs, when I was actually watching every episode, including the Christmas specials at the time. I had so much trouble trying to get to watch this episode for one particular reason. CEX. Now, it's been ages since I brought up this, but basically, when I bought originally my Series 4 DVD box set, a lot of the discs had disc rot, including the disc that I actually needed, and so eventually I got sent a replacement, which also had issues. So I couldn't even rewatch Time Crash because of that, which sucked. And I still haven't to this day. I haven't because there's no proper way to watch it. But now that I think about it, I might have a way. So by the time this comes out, I probably will have watched it. Anyway, back to the story. The Voyage of the Damned, after this rewatch, is okay. It's not the best of the David Tennant Christmas specials. We had two really strong ones with the Christmas Invasion and the Runaway Bride. And this one, set on Space Titanic, is okay. Kylie Minogue in it is, I loved it as a kid, but when on this rewatch, um, I didn't necessarily like her character. Um, it just didn't really gel well with me. The same with all the other characters that the Doctor interacted with, but the two main ones obviously was Alonzo, which allowed the Doctor to finally say Alonzo, which was a reference to the end of Series 2 of Doctor Who in the Army of Ghosts. Um, and then, of course, the other one was Wilfred Mott, who we didn't know technically was called Wilfred Mott. Obviously, by the time the episode comes out, or at least when I was watching the credits for the Series 4 on the Series 4 DVD, he is credited as Bernard Cribbins is credited as Wilfred Mott. And so, again, everyone loves Bernard Cribbins as Wilfred Mott. May he rest in peace. And I'm really glad that we got to see him again in the 60th anniversary. Again, haven't necessarily seen it, but I'm basing that statement off of the leaked set photos that came out prior to the 60th being released. But yeah, overall, the hosts as a villain, very forgettable. They were very, very, very forgettable. So that's why I'm like this speech that he gives in the after the meteors crash into Titanic. David Tennant's speech in that was good. Doesn't necessarily save the episode. It wasn't that great, being completely honest with you. So let's move on to the next Doctor. So I'm pretty sure when I got around to the next Doctor, that it was my first time rewatching it since 2008. I see. I don't necessarily remember if I have rewatched this episode prior to when this, prior to my rewatch early on this year, and I have to say, back then I didn't necessarily like it as a Cyberman story. I thought it wasn't the greatest, but upon rewatch, it's actually not that bad. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the mystery between Jackson Lake and him calling himself the Doctor. I like the Victorian settings. As for the Cybermen, I mean, I can take the Cybermen or I can leave the Cybermen. As a Cyberman episode itself, it's not the greatest, but overall, the whole storyline of it, the Doctor thinking he's meeting a future incarnation of him that doesn't remember him being him, which kind of sets up the whole Ruth Doctor thing, and I'm just gonna stop talking about that now before I get burned to life from the Timeless Child hater fans. But anyway, yeah. So yeah, I liked it. I definitely did like it. Upon rewatch, it's not as bad as people say it is. It's still not as good as the first two of his Christmas specials, David Tennant's Christmas specials, but it is okay. It's definitely higher for me than the Voyage of the Damned. Voyage of the Damned is at the bottom. Then I'd say it's the next Doctor. So that only means we have one more to go, and that is The End of Time, parts 1 and 2, the David Tennant Regeneration Special. Now, the End of Time parts 1 and 2. I have seen a lot of people flip on this episode. After it wrapped up 13 years ago with the End of Time Part 2 on New Year's Day or New Year's Eve, 2010, was, it's something that I have seen, and a lot of people don't like it. They don't like the master plot. They don't like this, that, and the other. For me, after rewatching it, now I have obviously this is another of David's Christmas specials that I have come back to. Obviously, I have. It was the end of my childhood era. Essentially, by the time this came out, I was in my final year of primary school. So I was about 12 or about 12, 13 when this, you know, came out, the finale, before the Matt Smith era. And it it's still good. It's still good. Yes, there are parts of this episode that I don't like. Um and I'm sure I'd have to rewatch it to point out those, because again, I'm basing this off of memory of when I rewatched this early on this year. I think like April or May was when I last rewatched this. As a regeneration episode, it's comparing it to the regeneration episodes that I've seen. The 10th Planet, Logopolis, the Caves of Androzani, The Parting of Ways / Bad Wolf, this, The Time of the Doctor, or The Name of the Doctor, whatever the Doctor it was called, and Twice Upon Time, and The Power of the Doctor. It's not, comparing it to like some of the better regeneration stories, throughout the entire franchise, it's not the best. I will admit that, it's not the best. But I know a lot of fans love this episode as well, because it's, at the time, was David Tennant's swan song. They done multiple takes of him saying, "I don't want to go," as his final lines. Um, you know, and it basically, I have seen it, like, the Doctor Who Confidential of it, back when that was still a thing, of the different takes, and you do see David getting really emotional, and that's great. The fact that he still loves this show so much that it came back for both the 50th and the 60th, playing a new incarnation of the Doctor. Um, and hell, it even kickstarted what Moffat started with his two Doctors Regeneration. David going back in time to see Rose, the first face that face saw, which then correlates to Matt Smith seeing, Karen Gillan, and Capaldi seeing Jenna Coleman prior to Regeneration. Being the first face those doctors saw. So it is good in that. I was happy in that regard. Now, I remember missing that episode when it came out. The End of Time Part 2. I literally had to watch it on catch up. But obviously, prior to being able to watch that on YouTube, a lot of that stuff a lot of the spoilery bits got re-uploaded. Like the Doctor going back to Rose, Sarah Jane, Mickey, Martha, Jack. All of that I remember watching that first on YouTube, prior to actually watching the End of Time Part 2. And as an end to the first era of Russell, now that we're in the second era of Russell, it was, it wrapped up nice. It wrapped up nice and neat to enter into the Moffat era of the show. And Yeah, definitely. Again, rating it actually compared to the rest of the David Tennant's Christmas specials, and lumping parts one and two as one whole story, the end of time, I would definitely say it's the third best. A lot of people say they're the actual best. A lot of people would agree with me. A lot of people might say it's lower. To me, how I would rank them is The Runaway Bride is number one, followed by Christmas Invasion, then The End of Time, then The Next Doctor, and lastly The Voyage of the Damned. Now, a lot of people will disagree with me on that, and that's perfectly fine. So that now means I have covered all of David Tennant's run prior to his return as the 14th Doctor. Yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And of course, throughout the rest of this month, I will be doing Matt Smith's Christmas specials, which he has one that I'm really not looking forward to. And then Capaldi, who has two that I'm really not looking forward to returning to. So yeah, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all for the next upload.